Your Del Rio, Texas album featured such hits for you as Just Call Me Lonesome, which we heard a few minutes ago, and Nobody Wins, Closing Time, and also probably my favorite song on the album is Louisiana Blue.
Oh, thanks, man.
And we heard that, and that wasn't released as a single, though, was it?
No, it never was, and I always thought it should have been. The funny thing is that, you know, just before I got on, I think you were playing Forever Is Over.
Yes.
Off of my little acoustic record, website-only record that I have out.
Another fabulous album.
Oh, thanks very much. That song was written for Del Rio, Texas, 1959.
Oh,
That's
wow.
how old that song is.
I didn't know that. That makes a lot of sense, because it seems like it would fit
really
right in.
It's a really stone-cold country song, and I wrote it with Danny Keys, who's you know, wrote Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues and Ride 'Em Cowboy, and you know, sort of was really a pop folk artist, but you know, wrote all these amazing country songs. So.
And something else that is especially impressive about this album is that you had written or co-written every cut on the album, which was not that usual for Nashville at that time,
pretty unusual
or even now.
But I had come from that, you know, I'd had so many hits with other artists, and then, you know, we did the same thing in Foster and Lloyd. We rarely, I don't know that we had but maybe one outside song that we ever did.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they were pretty used to me being able to do that. And Tim was the kind of guy who would just say, it was fortunate because at the time nobody was screaming for a Radney Foster record, so he's like, you got all the time in the world, man, just write the rest of these. You know, we don't have to go looking for somebody else's songs.
And your songwriting is just so fabulous, just like so creative, like the line in Louisiana Blue that the muddy bayous run just as black as Coca-Cola.
Well, if you've ever seen them, brother, they do.
Yeah, it's just so.
being a guy who's from Texas, my mother's family were, you know, I lived in West Texas, but my mother's family were from East Texas, and we would go over there when my daddy had to do his reserve duty and spend 2 or 3 weeks with my grandparents. And we weren't but 10 miles from Louisiana, and if you've ever seen a bayou in deep East Texas or Louisiana, it pretty much looked like Coca-Cola.
Just a fabulous way to characterize it, though.
Oh, thanks very, very much, man.
You're welcome. And you've also released several other albums since then, and we talked about a couple of them, but I believe your most recent release is This World We Live In.
Uh-huh.
And this record also has a traditional feel in ways maybe a little different from Del Rio, Texas.
Yeah, to me, I think everything about this latest record is really rootsy, but it was cut with the guys who, Waddy Wattell and Charlie Drayton are part of Keith Richards' side project, the Expensive Winos. You know, when he's not playing with the Stones, he makes records that are bluesy records, you know, that he likes to make with the Expensive Winos. And
well, I know he likes country music too.
Yeah,
he's recorded with George Jones.
So I felt like, you know, the thing that I told the guys when we cut that record in 2 days in Los Angeles, and I just said, you know, if it's a rock song, I want it to rock. If it's a country song, it really needs to be country, and I don't want them to bleed over as much, even though I'm putting both rock songs and pop songs and country songs on the same record. I don't want, it's like, let's really be true to the art form itself for each one of them.
Yeah.
And since it's all the same band, I think it still fits together as a record, even though, boy, stylistically, it runs from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Yeah, it's just fabulously put together and just a fabulous mood to the album.
Oh, thanks very much, man.
Well, I'd like to ask you before we go, what's next for the future? I know you mentioned you're writing some songs with Bill Lloyd after all these years. And
Well, I'm actually writing songs and starting a new record of my own. I've been actually producing a bunch of other acts as a record producer for the last 2 or 3 years. I don't know if you're familiar with Jack Ingram, but I just finished doing about 4 or 5 songs on Jack Ingram, and I think several of them, maybe 2 or 3 of them, are going to end up on his next album. And then there's a band that's an alt-country band called the Randy Rogers Band from out of Texas that I produce all of their records, and then also a guy named Roger Krieger. I don't know if any of your listeners are hip to sort of the Texas movement that's going on, but whole other thing that's happening down there.
Yeah.
And so I've been producing several different guys from sort of that movement.
Sort of a jump back to more traditional sounds?
A couple of them are. I mean, the Randy Rogers Band is really a rock band with a fiddle player, quite frankly. I mean, they sound a whole lot more like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers to me than they... But they'll be really traditional. But, you know, Randy has a voice that sounds like John Fogerty.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's just got that rasp, and his voice is unbelievably cool. But, you know, Roger Krieger, on the other hand, is much more traditional than Randy. And there's a really super stone cold country, you know, shuffle called "I'm from the Beer Joint." You know, that's a really great song on. I didn't write it. I'm certainly jealous. Wish I had.
Yeah.
You know, but it's off of his new record. So I mean, it runs every part of the, you know, spectrum in that respect. But I'm actually starting my own record October 25th, and it'll probably take me till about. I kind of mull it over. I mean, I'll go in for 2-3 days, and then, you know, I'll probably go in for 2 or 3 days in late November, and then again in January or February, and, you know, maybe finish this record about March of next year, which means in your world it'll be out on the streets, you know, just in time for school to start next year in September.
I can't wait.
August.
And will you record that at your home studio too, like the
some of it'll be
sessions?
done at home, and some of it'll be in a real studio, depending on how many players I have all together at once. There's actually a residency studio in Louisiana. I've thought about taking some guys down there for a week and seeing what happens. Yeah.
And, well, I'd like to thank you again so much for appearing on the program, Radney. You're a true legend, and we just love your music here. I've had a lot of fun talking with you.
Oh, thanks very much, Paul, and study hard. You know,
I will.
If that country music singing thing doesn't work out for you, a degree, you know, a diploma from Phillips Exeter is not a bad thing to be able to have. You know, might get you into a good college or two. Last I checked.
And thank you so much. And I guess we're going to hear Closing Time from Del Rio, Texas, 1959. So here we go.